Have you ever wondered what it's like to follow in the footsteps of someone great? Do you think it's a path to success or a shadow you can't escape? This is the question many of us ask ourselves when we consider stepping into the shoes of a great man. It may seem tempting to follow the same course, to walk the same path, but this can often lead to a loss of individuality, hindering your personal growth. It's important to establish your own identity, to carve your own path, and to make your own mark in the world. It's about being the original author of your life story, not just a character in someone else's tale. You see, greatness isn't about imitation, it's about innovation. It's about finding your own unique way to shine. So remember, you have your own journey to make. Don't get lost in the shadows of those that came before you. Have you ever noticed how in every group, power is concentrated around one or two people? It's intriguing, isn't it? This concentration of power often means that all trouble can be traced back to one individual. Understanding who controls the group is therefore critical. Now, let's consider the strategy of the shepherd and the sheep. In order to control the flock, a shepherd doesn't need to control each sheep individually, but rather he directs the whole group by managing just one or two. Similarly, in any group or organization, you'll find that power and influence are usually concentrated around a few key individuals. Identifying these individuals, the shepherds if you will, is crucial. By rooting out these individuals and preventing them from operating, you effectively stop their influence from spreading. But remember, don't waste time. The longer they are allowed to operate, the more their influence will multiply. Lastly, and most importantly, once you isolate their power, they become redundant. So strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. How often do you feel coerced into acting in a specific way? It's not a pleasant feeling, is it? People tend to resent being pushed or forced into doing something. It's far more effective and less obvious to subtly guide them towards your desired outcome. And the secret to this? Understanding their psychology and their weaknesses. Each person is a unique puzzle with their own set of motivations, fears, and desires. By taking the time to understand these pieces, you gain the ability to influence their actions without them even realizing it. It's like playing a strategic game of chess where you're always thinking several moves ahead. The key is in the subtlety. You don't want to come across as manipulative or domineering. Instead, you're simply nudging them in the right direction, playing with their emotions in a way that benefits both parties. Remember, by softening them up, you can slowly bend people towards your will without them realizing. Have you ever felt humiliated when someone mirrored your actions? Now imagine employing this technique strategically. This is the power of the mirror effect. It's a tactic designed to disarm and infuriate your opponents, and it's surprisingly effective. You see, when you mimic your adversary's actions, the result is often a sense of humiliation on their part. This, in turn, can provoke an overreaction, leaving them vulnerable. But the mirror effect does more than just disarm. It also confuses. When your opponent sees their own values reflected back at them, it becomes challenging for them to discern your strategy. They're effectively blinded by their own reflection. And let's not forget about the educational aspect of the mirror effect. By giving your opponents a taste of their own medicine, you're teaching them a lesson, often highlighting the flaws in their own strategy. By mirroring your opponents, you are not only disarming them but also teaching them a lesson. How do you feel when too much change is introduced at once? It's a common sentiment, isn't it? We often resist change when it's too sudden or drastic. It's human nature to feel comfortable with the familiar and to resist the unfamiliar. Imagine you've just stepped into a position of power. You're eager to make your mark, to bring about changes, but be careful. If you introduce too much change too quickly, you risk engendering a revolt. People have a natural tendency to resist what they don't understand or what makes them uncomfortable. So how do you navigate this delicate balance? The answer lies in gradual and gentle improvements. Respect how things have been done up until this point. Introduce changes that seem like a natural progression, a gentle improvement on the past. This approach will not only make the change more palatable, but also more sustainable. Change is necessary, but remember, too much change at once can engender a revolt. Do you think appearing faultless and without weakness is a good thing? Well, let's take a moment to unpack that. Perfection can be a dangerous facade. Yes, it can initially inspire admiration, but over time it breeds envy and resentment. Why? Because no one is truly perfect, and pretending to be so only distances you from others, making you seem less human, less approachable. Now let's consider an alternative approach. Imagine someone who is strong, capable, yet openly displays harmless vices or minor flaws. This person seems more relatable, doesn't they? They're showing us that they're human, just like us. They're powerful, yes, but not flawless. And this, my friends, is where the magic happens. By doing so, they're preventing envy from developing and instead fostering a sense of connection. They're showing that it's okay to be imperfect, to be human. So remember, appearing powerful but not faultless can prevent envy from developing. How do you react to changes? This is a question we must all ask ourselves. In a world that is constantly evolving, the ability to adapt and morph ourselves is crucial. Being tangible, rigid, and static makes us vulnerable. Instead, we should strive to be as fluid as water, adjusting our course as the landscape of life shifts around us. Refusing to adapt to change is a surefire path to failure. A stagnant river breeds decay. Similarly, those who resist the tide of change are likely to find their power, their influence, being usurped by those who can ride the wave of transformation. We must embody the truth that everything, everywhere changes. Like a chameleon, we must adjust our colors to match the ever-shifting hues of our environment. This adaptability, this formlessness, is our shield against the unpredictable nature of reality. Remember, the powerful are constantly adapting, and their power comes from the speed at which they can change.